Good morning and welcome to the CADclass podcast. I'm Josh,
I'm Jake.
and each week we talk all things 3D printing, making CAD, Fusion 360. We make mini projects, we rant, we do fun stuff, and holy
We
smokes,
do
Jake,
more ranting now than we've ever done, which is great for my blood pressure.
I'm in, and we have 14 people to start this podcast. I think that means
That's
that
right.
we're like kind of cool or something like that. We're
No,
just
definitely not.
No, it doesn't mean that. But
Definitely not.
good morning. I see Joe Street. I see printed by John, PC Van Vliet,
How's it going, everyone?
Aaron Rosen, Johnny Yurtafan, Joe Street, Ogre, printed by John, I said, Sam, Marion Stoika, Spitfire. Wow. I love seeing this chat. Oh, we got
How's
Maple
it going,
Leaf
everyone?
Makers. We have Iron Arms. What?
I'm not sure I've seen Iron Arms before.
I think I've seen them once, maybe
But
twice
good to have
in the
you
past.
regardless.
It is, Stanley Kubrick.
Hey, my favorite director of all time.
That's
even though he
amazing.
died in the 90s. That's fine.
That's right.
That's still fine.
Yeah, well, maybe this is his ghost, so we hope it is. Hey,
That's
Stanley.
I hope
so
you
last
like me
week,
putting Hal in our book.
that's right. So last week, Jake, challenged the folks who actually showed up to this podcast to make something for their toolboxes, largely inspired by what you made for your toolbox. So
Yeah,
we got some submissions.
So I worked on a project last week that has been on my boilerplate for, no joke, months and months and months. And there's a nice thing within like the making community where we obviously like to build stuff for other people, we like to build stuff for ourselves, but there's something fantastically satisfying about like architecture, or not building architecture, but like infrastructure.
Jake.
That's a better thing.
Whoa.
No, making infrastructure where it's like small little things to just help you out in your project. And
Yeah.
it can be small, or it can be as big as like a massive cabinet that you hold all your tools into.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a thing where I know people go, oh, you're just making shop furniture or a shop project or a shop tool or anything like that. It doesn't need to look pretty. Therefore, it can look kind of trashy because you're the only person to see it. I recognize that as a thing. I totally do. That being said, I always need to make it over the top pretty. Like one of the things that when Josh and I were working at a makerspace, and we would teach people a brand new area of making, whether it be woodworking, metalworking, 3D printing, anything, it would always be, don't worry about making something look really beautiful right at the beginning. You should make something, and if it looks a little ugly, that's fine as long as it's functional. Therefore, you should always start off with like a sharp tool or a jig or something like that, because as long as it works, that's fantastic. You're getting the skills in making it, and you don't really need to show it off to anyone. Therefore, there's no fear with it not looking absolutely perfect. And I truly do believe in that technique. I always like to make things over the top. So I used to do quite a lot of wood turning. I haven't done it in a little while, but really massive segmented projects. And I have a bunch of these little carbide turning tools. And so I went, okay, I'm going to go ridiculously over the top and make solid walnuts 2-axis box with gilded insignia and brass corner brackets and brass turned feet to lift it up. And people be like, oh, wow, that looks beautiful. And they open it up and it's just full of tools. And I love that. I really do. So I'm the worst person for that. So I took what we made last week on CAD and just kind of ramped it up a little bit and just made it just a little bit nicer, more functional. But I tested out a really cool technique that I do want to show you guys in a little bit. I've seen it in the past. I've never made it before this project, and it works a treat. And so I just want to show you guys on live how to do this, and we'll probably make it into a YouTube short when I have a minute.
Nice.
But let's go over to our Discord.
I do want to go to the Discord, but I want to welcome a couple more people specifically because so Moses is in here. So Moses is the one, or she. I'm guessing he, but I guess I shouldn't assume. Is the one that made the utility knife as the challenge.
Rad. I love that. Yeah.
That was an awesome project. I was really happy to have you here. And I also saw David Dickens. And I may have missed, Johnny Yurtafan, I think I don't know if I'd said hello to. So hello. Moses, awesome work. I'm really digging what you're making.
Yeah. it's been a bunch of really kick-ass projects.
You want to bring up,
Um,
actually just pull up, just before we're in this section right here, go to that
Mhm.
week 6 section, since I just mentioned him. Go to the, I think it's the Ender 3 hot end. Yep. And just show off, like,
Yes.
that's really, also
Super rad.
I love the hot end project, by the way.
So this is actually a project that comes up in the sample files that's already built into Fusion 360. When you go onto data panel onto the left-hand side, there's a massive list of pre-made projects, pre-made CAD files, like a reciprocating saw, a Stanley knife like this. There's a couple others I'm totally forgetting, but they're fairly. They're just not very fun when they're pre-made. Like, I get the whole point of it is so that you can take it apart and look at all the individual components and put in joints and stuff, and that's fine. That's fine. But someone actually making this themselves is so much cooler.
So rad.
Much cooler.
Nice
So
work.
Moses, hats off to you. That's amazing. That's
2
fantastic.
stars for you, Moses. 2 stars for you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We're giving out stars.
Not 2
on this
stars out of
podcast.
5, but
yeah. Wait, I'm going to tell you, it's just 2 stars. You know, you get to decide.
Oh, and they rented it as well.
I know.
Oh, that's right.
It looks so slick.
Can we? Okay, Josh. This is a question to you. This is not a Jake rant. This is a
Okay.
general discussion. Okay.
Let's do it.
What do you call this tool? Because I just called it a Stanley knife because I think
call it
that's
a
what
box
lot of
cutter
people do.
or a utility knife.
Okay, you call it. Okay, so I have my entire life I've called it a box knife. That's what my dad taught me, and he's the maker in my life. So I've always called it that. And then as I started to, work at workshops and I'd be meeting more people, all the Americans would call it a utility knife.
Yeah, I know both.
And I'm like,
because
a utility could be anything, right? Like,
yeah, but also a box cutter. It's like, well, it's not how I do use it to open up boxes, but I also use
like
it.
The whole point of this is that the knife only comes out a little bit, so that you can kind of cut through cardboard and cut through tape.
Yep.
And that's fine. I want to show everyone one thing really quick, and it's something that I don't get to talk about much. Do we all know these kind of knives where it comes out and they've got all these serrations on it so you can snap it off? I feel like I'm going to blow at least one person's mind. Don't get like a pair of pliers to cut these off because you never get a clean edge. There is a little slit in the very end of all of these black ends that you can pull off and then insert into the knife, and then you can actually use that as a tool to snap it off. So you never actually have to get a pair of pliers. You never have to cut your hand. The tool is built into the very end of the knife. So hopefully that helps one person at least.
Speaking of Stanley, Jake, did you see this shenanigans that's going down with these Stanley mugs?
Yeah.
Do you?
It's ridiculous.
This is like the Beanie Baby craze and the Furby craze. What other crazes were there where people just kind of lost their minds? Like, people are. I just saw something where somebody had walked out with a store with like 180 mugs, just wiped them out. I'm like, what is this? What's going on?
It's just it's the in thing right now, I guess. There is. So I follow a subreddit called Buy It for Life, where people just show off products that are just built to last for 100 years. Things that were like purchased in the 1950s that still last today. And people still show off like, oh, this is my dad's Stanley thermos, and it has like this really iconic kind of metal clunky handle to it. And people are now selling those for like thousands of dollars on eBay right now.
Yeah, trading cards. Caden says trading cards. Yeah, that was the same
Yeah.
idea. Is this artificial scarcity? Tulips. Oh yeah, way back in the day, the tulips. Absolutely. There was a tulip craze. That was like one of the early like gold rush. Yeah.
What?
No, this is it. I can't. You can't. I don't know. Is that any weirder than a mug? I don't know.
I guess. I mean, it's perishable.
Tulip mania. Yeah. Tickle me Elmo. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I proposed to my fiance in Amsterdam in the National Botanical Garden
inside of a giant Stanley mug.
Yeah,
babe,
and she gets a tattoo everywhere that we go. So she has a tulip right there on her hand, and our tattoo artist was from Santa Ana, which is like a stone's throw away from me in Southern California. So I was like, Small world, dude. Yeah, it was rad. Anyway,
all right, let's
I want to
we
get
have
back to all the
let's
other
get into
stuff that people
Discord.
have made.
Let's enough talking about us, Jake. Let's show off
I
what
totally
people
agree. I
do.
can't stand our voices.
Yeah. We have
So
some
this
really
was
cool stuff
rad.
popping in. Yep.
I want to go back into the I made a thing.
Yeah.
Ghost Pepper, these guys snap between a trim piece and the back of a Volvo vehicle. Printed several of them. 7.5 is the sweet spot. That's pretty rad. I have no idea what this is though,
It looks
but it looks
like
good.
a clip. Let's see the guy.
Hmm.
Guys snap between the trim piece and the back wall of the vehicle. Is that like yeah,
I
I
don't know what
think
that
that's
is.
like little clips that kind of like what holds your door in place. They
Oh,
make these
okay.
little
All
clips
right.
that looks like an edited version of one of those. They break, by the way, I did a
Mm.
lot of audio work on cars. They break all the time, and you can't actually find the exact clip that you need. You have to
Oh,
buy
really?
like 1,000. I couldn't find it. And if you
Oh,
do find it, they want to charge you like $10 for a single clip.
hey,
These
Ghost
clips are
Pepper,
like 1
3D print
cent.
them, print it in a strong material like PTG, and then sell them. We have had way too many people. I think like we had like 30 beta testers for our course. I think 3 of which were car guys. I think Sam Coleman is one of them,
Yep.
where they just found a fairly niche, not very common car part, printed it out on a normal 3D printer, put it on eBay, and it sold immediately. It was like I'm not from that world, so apparently that's just a kick-ass product to make.
Absolutely. So that's amazing. So this is a project that we've been working on at the Museum of Science and Curiosity. Gort, I was just clicking through. It looks like that's Bill. So Bill is, I believe, a
Nice.
retired engineer, and he has been making some rad stuff.
I love this. This is part of a 3D printable rocket launch project where we have a little cylinder that holds some compressed air, and then you can release it all at once. Ping, and then it fires off the rocket. And we would, I think it's a good sound. And we were just playing around with all these different silly tops and fins and this and that, spinning parts, rotating parts, weird things to put on the top, like a low poly Pikachu because it's just going to fly terribly. A scaled down model of the Saturn V, which flies awful. It's so a ton of fun. So I love seeing all these,
and those are all
really
printed in
weird,
TPU.
quacky creations.
Those are printed in TPU. What I really like about these is like you get to kind of use your imagination to figure out what might happen if you added those fins on. Like some of these corkscrewy designs, like that's actually really fun. Like we know really because we printed some of the fins in like a winding pattern, and it does spin going up. But it's like you could do all kinds of funky stuff with these fins.
Yeah, these are.
You could like make one
going
that
up, and then we
kind of does a projectile motion and just fire it at people, even if it's going straight up. If you got it right.
I kind of want to make like a TPU like cartoony boxing glove on the very end of it. Fire it at people. In other news, I made a thing that holds up the sunscreen. Ah, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I
Aaron.
see now. Yeah. There it is. Sense. Yep.
That is a niche thing. Holy hell, that is really niche. That looks cold out there. I hope everyone stays in warm everywhere. Going up Joe Street. Work in progress. I might as well share this for a few weeks. Design storage for some silicon casting parts. Yes, this is what I like to see. I really want to continue this weekly project thing because I think we all have a million projects that are on the back burner that we just haven't had time to make. And hopefully we're just going to inspire you to say you are going to do that project this week, because we'll just name off random topics. But hopefully you guys actually have laundry list of projects that you need to do, and you will complete it. I believe in you. It's not just going to stay a temporary solution. You will actually fix it this week.
By the way, I'm going to tease this by the end, right? We have chosen what the challenge for the week is going to be, but we're not going to tell you until the end.
Ooh. Ogre organizing some electrical connectors. Love to see that. I've recently just started amassing some more electrical parts. Little 3D prints. Ooh, I actually really like that.
Yeah, that looks
not bad.
Awesome.
That's a clean surface.
Holy hell. Very clean surface finish.
Very nice. And then did some more projects. That's great. I do need to make a wrench holder. I need
do you remember those horrendous wrench holders from Harbor Freight that you would open it and all of the
hate
wrenches
this.
would fly out every time.
I hate it so much.
It drove me nuts. So yes.
I can't decide if I'm one of those people who likes it in the rack situation because it takes up less space, or if I prefer to lay them flat and just like position them nice and neat. I can't tell which one I prefer.
This
This
looks
one
rad.
is
This looks rad.
this looks really rad. I'm not sure who
really,
this is.
really
Olga,
like
I
it.
may have to steal this file.
By the way, it's a
And
nice
then
looking
making a little
soldering
mounting
station
thing.
there too.
That's pretty rad as
I'm
well.
really digging that little soldering station.
Not too
Looks like it's a
All
3D
right.
printed base, right? Yeah, look at that. The base
It
of that
is,
soldering.
yeah.
I
I
like that
love
a
this kind of
lot.
stuff. I
I
do subscribe
have
to the idea that if you have a tool, all of your accessories should be attached to it.
Hmm.
I really dig that.
I have an old Radio Shack soldering iron that I love.
This still works?
It's amazing. Not only does it work, it's the
Wow.
best soldering iron I've ever used. All I had to do was replace the tips. It's amazing. And I'm like, this thing, actually, Eric gave it to me. So our buddies run this company
Right.
called Vantopia, where they do CNC van conversion kits. And Eric one day was like, hey, I've got this Radio Shack soldering iron. Do you want it? And I was like, do I want it? Come on, man. Radio Shack is like part of my DNA. Like that Radio Shack was the store.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm very, very slowly replacing all of my corded tools with cordless tools, and life is so much nicer. Having a cordless sander and a cordless jigsaw, oh my gosh, life is so much better. I know there's downsides to it. Good lord.
Not as many down as there are up. I'm a huge fan of cordless tools.
Cordless soldering kit as well. So nice.
The Ryobi
So
kit. That's
nice.
what we suggested they purchase at Museum of Science and Curiosity.
Yeah.
Because when you solder with 8 or more people, it turns out you get this rat's nest of cables, and it's so incredibly dangerous.
And then as soon as one falls off, all of them get pulled, and it's a
right. And
nightmare.
all of the hot tips of the soldering iron might burn through the wire and actually electrocute. So I was always like, oh, this is terrifying. So yes, huge agreement there. Get tools, especially those tools that are the core. Like how long does it actually take you to solder? Doesn't take you that long. Solder a couple joints, be done. You don't need a super long lasting one. Cadence is on here. She's using those soldering irons. She's like, love the cordless soldering irons. And Cadence, you have you probably have an idea. I shouldn't say you have no idea, but that came from like what 6 years of pain. Where like we will not order corded soldering irons again.
Yeah, I mean they are expensive compared to just corded, but God, they're just so much nicer. So nice. It makes life so much easier, just ridiculously easier, and they heat up so much faster as well.
They're great.
Anyway, Joe Street is continuing on with his shuffler BattleBot. I didn't realize the volume was all the way up. You guys can't hear it, but that gave me a shock. But dude, this is awesome. That is such a unique mechanism. I'm so excited for it.
Shout out to Joe Street, by the way. So they are running Rabid RVA. So Richmond area. I can't remember the rest of that acronym, but it is a robotics competition in Virginia. They just started combat robotics competition. They just started. And so we wanted to let all of you know, if you're in the Richmond area, Rabid is what you're looking for. We'll have them post some links in here, but we are actually going to sponsor it, Jake.
Yeah,
we're gonna sponsor the arena.
Sponsor one of these things for so long.
We're gonna sponsor the arena. We're gonna give them a little bit of cash so they can build out an awesome BattleBot arena. Richmond, Virginia is RVA.
Okay, aren't cheap.
So we're gonna give them a little money to sponsor the arena. We're probably gonna give away a 3D printer. We're gonna give away some books.
Give away some courses.
Give away some courses. We're gonna have some discount codes for the courses. And basically, we're like, hey, how do we just sponsor stuff that sounds rad? And so hopefully here, Jake, we were talking about this yesterday. I want you and I to be able to get out to one of the competitions this year. So that's going to be one of our other goals is going to be to get out to Richmond and come to one of these competitions and just have all the fun. So
I've never been to a combat robotics thing in real life, and I really, really want to. We did see, Josh and I went to Open Source last summer in San Francisco. That's the convention hosted by William Osman and a bunch of other amazing YouTube makers that I'm sure we're all familiar with. Adam Savage was there, Unnecessary Inventions, Alan Pan, Michael Reeves, CNC Kitchen, just a bunch of really, really rad
Maker's Muse.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, he was just walking around,
just chilling. We had Joseph
it's so
Prusa.
funny.
Joseph Prusa was walking around. I mean, it was like it was
Yeah,
weird. It's strange to see all the people that
it
you
was
always
so much
see
fun.
in the ether here on the internet, right?
Yeah,
So,
and it's like, oh my god, everyone's
so
head
Joe
is
Street
really big.
says it's the Richmond area bot instigated destruction, or RABID RVA, and
Awesome.
RVA stands for Richmond, I guess, Virginia.
Virginia.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah.
amazing.
So
So we're
they
gonna.
had a little battle bots thing there, and they had a whole pit where as soon as if your robot got destroyed, it's like, well, you got another round in a little bit, so you've got a really short amount of time to just fix your robot, either replacing parts or resoldering or reconnecting or 3D printing new parts. It had this really lovely manic energy to it, which I really, really loved. So I am so excited to see more
So
and more
excited. I'm so
of
excited.
these robotics projects.
Yeah, these guys are amazing. And I did get a quick question here. Did I find a couch to surf? The answer is yes, I did. Yes, I
Oh,
did.
exciting.
I found somebody sent me a private message and said they are in San Jose, about 14 minutes from where I need
That's
to
very
be.
nice.
Said, you're welcome to crash. It's like a fold out, some sort of fold out pad or something. I'm like, I'm in. Let's do it.
I love that. That's like that. You so much prefer that to like getting a hotel. That you're
I
just
don't
like,
know
no,
that
no, no.
I don't know that I prefer it. You know, I think I do like hotels serve their purpose.
But
What I like though is that it gives me an opportunity to just interact with somebody in real life. Like I don't get to
yeah,
silo
grab a
myself and
beer
like
with someone.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting.
In the category of absurd specific problem solving, I found a few glow samples. Oh my god, that's so funny. That is so funny. I love that kind of stuff. What else are people making? Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yes, this tool holder up here, Mr.
Little
Mitnick.
hex driver holders.
PC Van Vliet in the chat.
Love to see it. That's awesome.
Yep.
Little magnets on the
Yep.
bottom. That's so rad. God, I'd love to see stuff like that. Where it's so specifically niche. There's some really nice drivers as well. Damn. That is very nice, actually.
Yeah, it is.
This is rad. I made some DO3D. I'm not sure what that stands for. Mass, and they came out. Obviously, Spider-Man.
Look at
dude, that's
that.
rad. I don't know if they just found the file
incredible.
and printed it, or if they actually designed it. If you did print it, or if you did design it and make this,
is that
wow? Oh
it
my
says
God,
what the
hats off to
Dickens.
you.
I wonder if that's David Dickens here in the chat. David,
I
if
have
that's
no
you, let
idea.
us know. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's amazing. That's a really rad print. All these things that I see people print, I'm like, God, if I was a kid with all this tech, I would make absolutely everything. And a little bit even is like anytime I get to print like childhood stuff like that, it just kind of fills the void a little bit. So I love seeing stuff like
that. I think David Dickens is what the Dickens. So he's in the chat. So awesome work. And then he has another one here, which is so cool. The domino, the rocket.
Damn. Just amassing everything. This is on the Prusa XL, which is just gigantic machine. Absolutely ridiculously huge. Yeah, it looks like you do need to dry your filament, man. That's a little stringy.
Little
that's
stringy.
All right. That's all right. These things happen. Oh yeah, and then
we get to the thing.
So one of the things that I mentioned last. Oh, so this is my final project. A little holder for all my stuff. And then right under there, I've got some magnets on it, but essentially just two bars that hold in place. But there's a really funky mechanism that actually holds the metal bars onto plastic parts. They really don't like to glue to each other, and putting set screws and bolts to kind of clamp it in place just felt like a little bit of overkill. And so I wanted to try out a really cool technique that I saw Maker's Muse did like 5 years ago. It's just been sitting in my back pocket, haven't used it, and now I actually want to be starting some stuff like that. So I just want to show off my CAD really quick.
I love this little mechanism, by the way. This is so slick.
It's kind of rad. So the idea with this is previously it was just a hole that I put a little bit of a tolerance in it. But now it's actually got, give you a bit head-on view, these different pins that actually can move out of the way and then come back in. This is a super duper simple mechanism, and it gave me a really incredibly tight fit. There's no glue or adhesives or anything on this. It is purely just the friction of these two arms that are essentially springing onto my part that give me a super strong piece. I did have to hammer it in place with like 2 mallet taps, which is perfect. So it's not building up so much stress that it'll actually break, because of course these 2 arms can actually flex out of the way. And then this arcade just gives it a little bit of clearance. It was this is a really weird shape to make, so I actually had to sketch it out on a little notepad and then bring it in. But I'll just show you guys the rough little mechanism. Oh yeah, so it is essentially just drawing. I'll draw it over here into the kind of ether. So you're essentially just drawing a circle, and we can define this. Let's say 5 millimeters. Really doesn't need to be anything in specific. I'll lock down that center, and then I'm coming into create slot. Oops. Slot and then center point arc. This is where you can essentially assign it's a curved slot, and then instead of just all of your points inside your slot, there's actually a point outside of it. So it's essentially just 3 of these, where the width of this I just set to 1.6 because that is a very common 3D printing size. That's 4 nozzle widths. I'll make another one onto the other side. So it starts off at the center, so everything's nice and concentric. I'll make these 2 absolutely equal. And then I want this inner curve to actually be coincident onto that arc. So I can just use my equal tool again to make sure they're actually touching. I'll add on some horizontal constraints. So these are all nice and equal. Pull you down as well. And then, so these will just be the solid arms. This will be a void. And then to make the overall arc, that kind of cavity, I will just make another one of these slots. And this really didn't take all that long to make. It's pretty easy. And again, this the width of this gap, I suppose, is just, again, 1.6. So it's just equal to everything else. So as soon as you have all of these made in place, you add some constraints onto it, it's pretty damn easy. It's not too bad at all. You can obviously adjust the height of this. You can do whatever you want to it. And it 3D prints fantastic. And really the only mechanism or the only dimension that you need to add in here other than the width of this is the distance between these two pins. So if you want it to be no, this doesn't apply any strength or weakness at all. So I just add 2 millimeters. So you've got a little bit of a void in there. And then you can come back with the trim tool by typing T. And then you can just open up that gap right there. And now you've got this kind of void shape. And as long as you have a larger body outside of it that includes these pieces as well, this will hold onto your part really, really well. In fact, I didn't actually, for this inner diameter, I didn't even put in any tolerance whatsoever. I just measured that bar with a pair of calipers and made it the inside, and it fits perfectly, absolutely perfectly. There's no slipping or sliding whatsoever. So yeah, it works great.
So Printed by John says, can you 3D print the rod? So I have thoughts here.
You can. Yeah, all right, go on.
No, go. And then I'll fill in what I think you might actually go the same direction here.
Okay, so 3D printing cylinders falls into the same category as 3D printing bolts. If you print, I don't have a single bolt. What the hell?
I think we know what a bolt is. It's fine.
Yeah, whatever. All right. If you're 3D printing a cylinder and you stand it upwards, the cross-sectional area going in this way, which would be a layer, is not actually that much, which means it can break really, really easily. If you print it sideways, then it means your layers has a huge amount of cross-sectional area. So if you try to bend that, really, really strong. The downside is obviously if you're printing a perfect cylinder laying on its side, it's technically only touching the build plate at one point. And so it's not all that strong, and it wants to fall over quite easily. One of the fixes that I actually really like is to remember that basically all 3D printers can print at 45 degrees of overhang really, really easily. And so if you just cut off the bottom section of any part to 45 degrees, then you get almost an entire circle, just the bottom section cut off, and it prints perfectly. So you can print cylinders, but unnecessary.
Yeah, and I think that's so you gave more detail on I think that was amazing because you gave all the detail on why you may and may not do it. I was actually thinking a little bit more philosophically here, and that is
Not everything needs to be 3D printed.
you when you're making things, consider the parts that are best for the process. And so a
Mhm.
cylinder is like readily available. It's not usually too hard to find one from a hardware store or
Yeah.
online on Amazon or something like that. It's kind of like, do I really need to make this kind of thing? Or do I like nuts and bolts? And
Mm.
yeah, you could print all the nuts and bolts, but also they're pretty readily available. So why would you?
I think you've just done a really fantastic transition to one of the projects that we're going to be doing in a little bit. So, has everyone in the chat heard of the anecdote of Lincoln's hatchets, where if you replace the handle and you replace the axe head, is it still Lincoln's hatchet? I think it's the same thing with like a wooden boat. Like if you replace the mast and the deck and the everything in the hull, is it still the same boat? And it's obviously a philosophical anecdote of when does something still stay the same?
At what point? It's
If
like
you're
the essence of a thing, right? At what
Yeah,
point
yeah,
is the
it's very, very
thing
deep.
not the same thing that it originally was? And so,
Yeah.
if
If
you
you have
remove
an
the
entire
hull, is it still a
car,
ship? If
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like if it's a
If you
car,
replace
it's
a
like
single bolt on a car, is it still the same car? I don't know.
and like
If
exactly
you
how
cut a
that
finger
line
off me, am I
experience.
still the same person? Probably not. It's it's
Um,
it's kind of fun, and yeah, the ship of Thesis. So
that's what it's
uh,
called. I couldn't remember
one
the name of it.
one thing that I've wanted to do for a long time that I will be doing very very soon, and making some fun YouTube videos about it, is taking that ideology to 3D printers and seeing if I can replace as many different components on a standard Ender 3, nothing special, and then print the next parts on the 3D printer. At what point does it not become an Ender 3? So a lot of people, they will replace parts on their 3D printer. They'll take off the fan shroud and they'll put on new parts to it, new fan ducts, all kind of accessories. Oh, I want my spool holder to be on the side. It doesn't really matter. And at a certain point, when there's so many upgrades to it, we kind of say that's now no longer an Ender 3, technically. But it's always this really lovely philosophical gray area. Like, what do you mean? It still has all the bits and pieces on it. So this kind of comes back into the idea of a rep wrap 3D printer. So very, very early ideology of robots is, well, if you had a robot that could make itself, then it could be reproducible, a rep wrap. And 3D printers are kind of the main topic about this, because as soon as you buy a 3D printer and you tell someone about it, they will always ask you the exact same lame, boring question. Can you 3D print a 3D printer? It's like, yeah, we've all heard that 10 billion times and it's still not funny. But I want to take that a little bit further and kind of find this weird transition of rep wrap machines where I'm going to be replacing a part, something simple at the beginning, and then going more and more advanced, but then printing that next part on the machine. And I will do that until the 3D printed parts simply don't work at all. I guarantee they're going to get worse and worse quality.
I can't wait to see
But
the bad quality.
but I kind of want to print a benchy on each point as well, and like see the transition of
Oh, that's a
ugliness as well.
great idea.
And
Honestly, the
I,
benchy, the evolution of benchy is fun.
the devolution of benches.
That's right.
And I've been wanting to do this for ages and ages, so I will be doing it. I think we'll probably be CADing up some of the parts and showing all of it in a longer form video, and then making a short about it. Who knows? But one of the things that I wanted to kind of get from the chat right now is I want to have some self-imposed rules, de rules, and some restrictions to make it as pure of a project as possible. Because I think I could like reinvent parts specifically for 3D printing, and I think that would be cheating.
I,
So
I
for example, like I want to stay in the confines of a pure project. For example, some of the bolts on an Ender 3 are M3. Tiny, tiny, tiny. And if I 3D print that, a perfect replica of an M3 bolt, obviously the threads won't work very well and they're just going to break. That's just going to happen. So in some areas, I do have to take into account the material and the technology and kind of work around it, where it's like, hey, I have to make larger threads for all of this. I can't just work with teeny tiny things. Obviously, some of the electronic components I can't make. John Naruto fan. I'm not using a resin 3D printer. It needs to be printed on the same machine.
Yeah.
Very, very important. And I think I want to replace as many parts as possible. I was playing around with the idea of not replacing hardware like bolts and nuts, because that's not a 3D printing component. That's just a bolt. But then Josh said, but the aluminum extrusions aren't 3D printed components. They're just aluminum extrusions. All right, fair enough. So I'm going to have to work through this and try and make it as pure as possible. Potentially threaded inserts. That's, I don't know. Is that, what do you think about that, Josh? I don't know.
I think
the problem with that is that I don't have threaded inserts big enough to fit 3D printed bolts. You can actually you can print circuits. I don't have a PCB printer, unfortunately. I'm just going to do the mechanical parts for now. Who knows? We may send off some parts to be made later down the line. But I just want to if I can print the inserts. I'm going to try and stay as pure as possible. So some parts I think logically can't fit inside the build plate. So you can't print the lead screw large in real size, because the lead screw physically needs to be bigger than the printing volume. I think that's something that we all recognize. So some parts are going to have to be made in multiple components and then glued together. So there's no glue inside an Ender 3. There's no that kind of stuff. So I think I will use hot or super glue to actually join everything together. I think that's allowed. I think that's still pure. But yeah, what other restrictions did we say we wanted to do on there actually? Some of them are really fun.
Yeah, I don't even. I think it's gonna be fascinating. Is it's almost like, what order do you replace things, and then what challenges does selecting it in that order actually lead to? I think this is going to be one of those things that no matter the self-imposed restrictions, they're going to change as you learn what the heck is actually going on.
Yeah.
You're like, well, it's not going to work anymore. So like, can I sort out how to make, like, I'm even thinking, like, is there a way to, use the like filament, heated up filament to glue parts together with the machine itself?
To actually
weld it. Yeah.
Ooh, if I was using ABS, I could weld it together with acetone.
You could just pull the hot end off and then like squish plastic around it by hand and then like sand it down. I don't know. I'm getting kind of wild here, but just kind of food for thought. Like, I don't know if we want to use. I am still on the fence. Like, do we use glue or not? It's not part of the printer, but like, I don't know.
Well, there is technically glue. Like, if you open up the motherboard, all the wires are held down with hot glue. So technically there is PLA, PCG, and ABS only. Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
I think I'm not going to do PLA because strength reasons, but also heat reasons. I hate ABS, so I do have a spool of some Prushiment, some Galaxy PETG, so I may do that.
Love it.
So I think this would be a super fun project to do, and we'll see just how terrible it gets. Now, I have seen CNC Kitchen. He did this great video where he went to a RepRap convention on the East Coast in New England, and it was and they had a printer that was as basically. You cannot take anyone else's design. Yeah, I'll do that. That was as 3D printable as possible. Like, for example, what is it called? The timing belt was made from TPU, and it was just because it's a flexible material. You can print. You don't need to print it in a straight line. You can print it in kind of curls. And I'm like, that's genius. That's so clever. So I'm going to try and be as pure to the Ender 3 as I possibly can, with the exception of some parts I will have to CAD and change as I go.
Yep.
But I think, is that fair? I think that's fair.
I dig it. I dig it.
It's yeah. I really like these. There's some part of engineering that I really like, and it's restrictions based on time or material or cost. It's always those, and it just makes it more fun. Like technically, you could do the entire project 3D printed in metal, but I don't have that facility, so I'd have to have someone else make it. But I don't want to do that. I want to make it myself. I want to have that restriction. And
Well,
it
you
just
could
makes
do
it so
the
much more
metal
exciting.
infused filaments as well.
Very weak, very very weak, very brittle actually. Even a dry metal filament you could just snap very easily. So no fun for that. Look into the 100 printer, PLA frame, crazy fast, 100K acceleration. Oh my god, that's crazy. Sorry, Josh, talk for a little bit. I'm just going to look this up because that sounds fantastic.
The 100K printer. It says somebody's
The
building it right now. No fancy filaments, in my opinion. Yeah, Joe Street, I agree with you. I think no fancy filaments. We'll try to use filaments that are like readily available.
Yeah, I did like this totally niche and highly highly specific, filaments that are just ridiculously strong.
Totally.
That feels cheating.
So a little
In the
teaser
same way
for
that if I was to silicon mold all my parts and then,
yeah, exactly, totally
cast them
cheating.
in resin,
Like,
it's like, yeah,
oh yeah,
technically they're 3D printed,
exactly.
but not really, that kind of thing.
Little teaser that I
I
actually don't think you even know about yet, Jake. This is going to be kind of fun, but we're going to do a special additional podcast next week. We are going to have, we are. We're going to have Pooch on live.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And we're going to go through the Prusa slicer with somebody on the inside of the Prusa team who's also been printing with Prusa forever. So we're going to do a special podcast also Tuesday morning next week at 9:30.
Very cool.
With
all
Pooch.
Right,
Wait. I'll definitely share the details
of
his
podcast.
I think I'd rather do it here.
I think I would as well.
Yeah, we could go to
He
your
has
podcast.
too many followers anyway. Yeah.
Well,
he's got enough. He's fine.
He can post it out and he can put it on his socials. Hopefully, drive some traffic to it as well. But so we'll have Pooch on here, and he's going to be walking us through the Prusa slicer, telling us all these like interesting things we can do with it because we're pretty new to the Prusa ecosystem. So just a little teaser for you all. You will see us twice next week potentially.
Ugh. Gross.
Yuck.
This Wednesday was very, very convenient because I'm off yesterday and tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
I'm officially old. It was my birthday yesterday. I'm 28,
Happy
and I woke up and my back hurts, and I'm like, ugh. I already feel old.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow is my me and my fiance's 5-year anniversary.
Oh,
super fun. So we're going to Universal because that's our favorite place. So if anyone is going there tomorrow, say hi. I am super super excited about that. I want to go over
You have a mini project, Jake.
I do have a mini project. I have a mini project that I didn't think I would ever need to make in my life. It's okay. So I recently picked up a Roomba, a very very cheap Roomba. It's the like 600 series. It was like $150, and I'm like, sweeping and swiffering is one of my least favorite things. It was on sale, so I'm like, fine, I'll pick one up. What I didn't know is that the 600 series is the one. Thanks very much, Moses. What I didn't know is that the 600 doesn't have a camera, fine, but it doesn't have any mapping capabilities. It's got a randomizer basically inside it, so it'll bump into everything and then fill in the gaps. That's fine. And so, essentially, it is what I'm calling it a drunk Roomba. It's so. I'm like, there's your home. Go back to your home, and it's like, I'm going to go this way, and it just stumbles. and there's, for some reason, my bedroom's floor are like that far above one each other, so there's like a little molding that kind of goes over it, and so it can't go up. And now I need to make a ramp for my Roomba so it can do everything. It is so strange. Is it like the Unabomber, where he was like, with growing technology that takes time off of you, it then flips it around and you now have to spend more time on it.
Yes.
There's some
Yeah.
truth to that. There's some
Yeah.
truth to that.
His
But
manifesto
that's
is
fine.
crazy. It's like the
Ridiculous.
biggest
If you haven't
anti-tech.
read the Unabomber's manifesto, it is
Jeez.
fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Absolutely insane. Harvard-educated mathematician. Who's a Harvard
Also
professor.
ran experiments on him as a kid.
Yeah.
He was part
yeah.
of some like pretty gnarly experiments. So crazy,
Yeah.
crazy story. Not
Could
that we
have
need to
been an
talk
amazing
about that
person.
here.
We talk about the strangest thing on this
We
podcast.
just-
I
I
know
don't
at the
know what it
beginning we
is.
say we talk about CAD and 3D printing. We end up talking about philosophy in the Unabomber. Anyway, but this is a very, very, very quick, simple project that I just wanted to do live because I may as well. I like doing little mini projects. They're the most fun for me. And so let's go ahead and jump back into Fusion 360. So I'm going to make a new tab. So I don't have any measurements. So I'm going to be designing this parametrically for most projects that I do, where if I haven't measured anything, I want to make my project with some variables that I can change later down the design. And so once this podcast is done, I'll go up and take a pair of calipers, measure this weird ramping crown molding, and then plug it back into this design, and then everything will re-go. What? Make it perfect is what I'm trying to get across. So I'm going to make this redo something. I'm going to make this in a side profile and then continue it on. So I'm just going to make a very simple sketch on the front. So I know roughly the shape of it, but nothing in specific. So I'm going to start out with a 3-point arc. So I know it's not a perfect hemisphere, but it does look something similar to that. Don't know what it is. So I'm going to be, let's say that the end is totally vertical above that piece, so it can be nice and flat going offwards that way. And I'm just going to put in some dimensions. So I'm going to put, for everyone that doesn't know, if you're going to be dimensioning something between 2 points, there's 3 ways that you can define it. The shortest distance, the horizontal, and then the vertical. So you can do it in any different way. I'm going to say that the horizontal is going to be a parameter, and so is the vertical height. Now, if you want to do this, you can go into change parameters where you can make a brand new parameter. You could say horizontal and then type in that value. Or if you're lazy, which most engineers are, instead of typing in the dimension, you can actually say vert equals 25 millimeters. Vert equals 25, and that will automatically set a parameter for you. You don't need to type it in. It's already said that this vertical dimension has 25 millimeters. So it's really doing a lot of the work for you. I just realized that is a horizontal distance. That's fine. That's totally fine. That would be 25. Whoops. So as soon as I type in V for vert, it automatically adds it in. Groovy. So I can do the same thing. Yep. Enter. There we go. So I'll do the same thing for that. I'll just say horiz equals 50. Doesn't actually matter, but it means that these are now parametrically driven. So I want to make a little ramp. I have no idea how far it's going to go down, but I know it has to start somewhere horizontal, and then it has to be tangent to this curve. So I'm going to make that line tangent to the arc. I don't really care where this line lives. Doesn't really matter. Obviously, this has to be on level with the floor. I have no idea how far that's going to be out. But I'm actually a little bit more concerned about the angle with this, less the distance that it actually comes out. So I'm going to finish off this profile. And again, I'm going to make this angle parametrically driven. So I can say angle equals 15 degrees. I'm almost positive that there is something online where it says, oh, Roombas, this is their maximum grade that they can go up. So I can just change that. So if it turns out that value is going to be, I don't know, something like 30 degrees, then it's a little bit shorter. Great. So I'm going to keep that as 15 degrees for now. Great. Super duper simple. So I'm now going to extrude this. Again, I have no idea how wide my door is for this. So I can set that as a parameter. So I'll say door equals, 500? Does Does that sound about right? I have no idea. No, it's almost certainly not long enough, but that's fine. I can measure that, come back and change that. But then one thing that I want to do is then slice this into 200 millimeter sections. So I can go into the offset plane, click on this edge and say negative 200, because I know this is going to be essentially made up of 3D printed parts, and the width of most of my 3D printers is 200 millimeters. So then I can cut my body or split this body with that plane as my tool. Cool. So then I've got a bunch of 200 millimeter sections that I can actually work with. Great. So now I've got this main one and then body 1, which I don't need. So I can hide that. I can tell you right now that this sharp point is not going to print very well. So I'm actually going to round off that edge. Don't know how much. Let's say 5 millimeters. Oh, that's way too much. Let's try 2. Yeah, that looks a little bit more reasonable. I do want to keep this edge nice and sharp, but then I can round off these edges as well, so they're a little bit more nice. Oops. There we go. And this bottom edge, I can keep that actually at a different dimension. I actually don't want this edge to be perfectly filleted. Why is that filleting? Don't know why.
So, by the way, Aaron says, generally robot vacuums can handle slopes up to 20 degrees, around 37% grade. Some high-end models can manage up to 25 degrees, a 47% grade.
Okay, so I may change that to 25. Perfect. This back edge right here, I actually want this to be a larger radius fillet than the rest of them. I'm actually going to increase that quite a lot. So the rest of them are 2 millimeters, but I can actually do multiple size dimensions inside just one feature. So I can say, add another one, select that bottom thing. That's going to be 4 millimeters. And there you go. I've now got instead of having multiple fillets in my timeline, I only have one fillet. So that's looking pretty good. This is obviously quite a lot of material that's actually taken up. So instead of doing this in Fusion, where I remove some material, I'm actually going to be doing it in Cura, actually. So as soon as that's loaded up, I can save this off as a mesh.
Again, using the drop down from the tree.
Yes, absolutely.
Why am I the browser? I'm like, what the heck is the word I'm looking for? Yeah. So 3D printing from the browser, not 3D printing from the file 3D print menu.
Absolutely. Did that pull it? Where the hell is my pot? Come on, open up. Am I totally blind? Where the hell is my pot?
You might be totally blind, but it is not there. So
it is not there at all. Anyway, I shall do this later. But the idea is that you can remove the top and bottom walls, reduce that to something like 0, and then just fill in a normal infill. So instead of having to print the top and bottom walls, which we don't really need, you can just remove that material into your slicer. Instead of doing it in Fusion, which would take a ridiculously long amount of time, I can just make a simple shape in Fusion and then make it much easier. And then remove all the material in my slicer. Work smarter, not harder.
Love it.
Is there anything else we want to go over?
There is one thing. So we got another I made a thing really quickly. Sam's son Luke, who I believe is 10 or 11 in that range, made his tool holder, and they just shared it.
Oh, nice.
And I think he might be on the pod, so let's show it off. Look at that.
Oh, that's rad. Yep.
If
Dude,
Luke can do it, you can too.
That's a good tagline. Dude, I love that kind of stuff. Really simple projects like this that just help you out immensely.
So cool. Rad. So cool.
I love that.
Nice work, Luke.
I have a little bit of a Jake rant that I've been meaning to get off my chest for a while. Okay.
let's hear it.
I've been doing this for a while, and I'm slowly getting, this is becoming less and less of a problem, but I just want to throw it out there into the universe. We work with quite a few clients that say, I have this one product, whatever it may be, and I need it in a bunch of different colors for anything. So usually if you say, oh, I want some parts to be 3D printed, is because it can be customized really, really easily. So I can put a logo on there, or I can put someone's name or a date, or I can change the size super duper easily. That's fine. The other nice thing is that you can get it in any different color really easily. Usually if you have a plastic injection molding part, they've got a massive vat of plastic pellets. They'll put in some colorants into there, and now the entire batch is the same color. And because it's from a manufacturer, they will have an exact amount of colorant, the exact Simeware K values, and so it's always going to be the same color. But if you go, oh, I only want like 5 of them to be this color, and I want 5 of them to be blue and gold, and so on and so forth, it's like that's a huge amount of waste. It's like nobody's going to make it in such small values. But if you then 3D print it, that's super duper easy. All you have to do is switch out colors. So because of this, I have amassed a huge amount of filament of different colors that I really don't use all that often. Like I know a lot of people have tons of filament and you're like, if only I could afford that much filament. It's like, you don't need it really at all. You can buy a spool of filament as you need it, but having a bunch of different colors is really not necessary at all. At all. And I'm slowly starting to get rid of some of it. So anytime we do trade shows, we always print off like little 3D printable tchotchkes that we can just kind of play with, where it's got a brand on it. We give it to people, kids can play with it, and then they're just kind of messing around with it. Love that kind of stuff. What really bugs me about the 3D printing filament manufacturing world, nobody, and I mean nobody, has standardized the colors at all. At all. How come when I say orange PLA on Amazon, it gives me 100 different manufacturers, which is great. And they are all slightly different colors, all slightly different shades. That is so annoying. If you go into the paint world and I say, I really want crimson, if you go to any art store, they're going to be almost exactly the same shade, with probably slight variances, but almost the exact same thing over and over and over again. And it doesn't exist. That exists in plastic injection molding. If you say, this is my color gambit that I need to give to this manufacturer, make it exactly this color, they will do it over and over and over again. If you pick up that information and go to a different manufacturer on the other side of the planet, they will make the exact same color. Why aren't we standardizing this?
So funny that you mentioned that.
Annoying.
Pantone, the company that prints out and standardizes a bunch of colors, is a many billion-dollar a year company.
I bet.
It is gigantic. I had no idea how big and successful this company is.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. So yeah, what the heck?
I recognize that are lots of different shades. Awesome. That's rad. If you say blue, guess what? There's lots of different types of blues. That's fine. But if I say something like brick red, that's specific enough to not have 5 different variants.
Totally.
Oh, so annoying. So there are certain websites where you can type in certain RGB values or hex codes, and it will find a manufacturer that does that. Guess what? Even if you find that manufacturer, different batches will change different colors. That's what it does. That's why rainbow PLA exists. It's because they can't control certain variants. They have leftover pigment, and so they're just chucking in different filaments one after another. That's why those exist, guys. So working with a client and then buying filament from the same person over and over and over again, and then suddenly that color isn't available. It's like, well, I now have to find a brand new manufacturer of matte blue or matte dark blue because this company doesn't exist anymore. That sucks. That really sucks. Anyway, all right, rant over.
End of rant. Couple quick things. So one, PC Van Vliet says, do we have experience dipping 3D prints in hydrographics? No. I do have experience hydro dipping metal parts, and it is rad and a lot of fun, but also tricky to get right. So if you've got a specific graphic you're trying to hydro dip it in, it takes some effort to get it right.
There's more chemistry with hydrographics than you'd expect. There's a bunch of places that do classes on it. So if you live in proximity to a airport, all of the buildings around there are usually manufacturing places because they make a lot of noise. and I bet one of them will like do car wrapping or something like that. They will very probably do hydro graphics as well.
Totally. All
But
right,
yes,
Jake. So we have the challenge of
we
the
have a new
week.
challenge.
We have the
New
challenge of the week. So the challenge of the week. This time we're going to tie it to something that we've already done and that inspired us in the past, and
And if
that
you
is going
haven't
to
got to this
be.
project,
This will be your
get to it.
inspiration. Just go ahead and skip ahead to it if you're not quite there yet, and even if you have to stumble through it. So, Jake, what are we going to be doing this week for the challenge?
I want you guys to CAD up and then 3D print and then hide your custom geocache. This is a
Geocache
project that we
container
have
hide.
in chapter 2.
Yep. So we want the custom ones. So the couple inspiration bits here. One of them, somebody made a mushroom, right? So the top cap was a mushroom, and then the bottom was like a thing that you kind of put into the ground, and then it screwed off the cap that way. So we want you to
I've
actually
seen
print
pine
up.
cones. I've seen logs.
You
I've
can
seen
hide
all
it in
kinds
a
of really cool things.
sign, right? So you can make it so that it fits inside of the hole of a stop sign, and just like one peg of it slides right in there. You can put it like the sky's the limit here. I want to see your geocache container with a photo in nature and the GPS coordinate tagged on the Discord by next
If you
week.
guys haven't done geocaching, it is so much fun. If you guys ever saw Indiana Jones and you're like, I want to be him, I want to do treasure hunting.
Geocache is chapter 2. Johnny, you're a fan?
You will love geocaching. It is so much fun.
So fun.
I think there's something like 3 million geocaches around the planet. So if you go hiking into fairly remote places, there's a geocache in there. If you go to really dense suburban cities, there's a geocache everywhere around you. I go geocaching every single place that I visit. There's a geocache on one of the foot of the Eiffel Tower that I got to find.
So cool.
It's tiny.
So
it's so much fun.
Find a spot to hide it. Find a spot to put it. You could poke it in the grass, make it look like a mushroom. If for some reason you don't have access to a 3D printer, which I think most people now do, but if you don't have access to a 3D printer, I've got one slight modification, Jake, and that is you need to try to render this in the environment that it should live. So a little bit more technically challenging inside of Fusion, and you might have to skip ahead a little bit and check the rendering section out to find out how to make what it is that you want. But if for some reason you can't actually print it out, I want to see it rendered in the environment you imagine putting it in.
Yes. Super duper fun.
So take a photo.
If you haven't done any of it,
tag the GPS coordinates. Sorry, Jake, I interrupted you.
If you haven't done geocaching before, find a bunch of them. Super duper fun. Really, really easy. If you have kids, it is so much fun to do.
So fun.
I do it with my partner all the time. You will need to make an account for this and then hide it somewhere. You'll need to give a description, a puzzle, a little hint if you want, some coordinates that you guys can download an app for. Easy peasy. It's completely free, by the way. And I want to see really, really clever designs. In the project, it's just a little screw container with some threads and some nails and some text on there, a little hook. I want to see you guys get really creative, and I want it to match where you live. We've got people all around the planet that come to this podcast and come to the course. So if you live in a beach or in a forest or in a desert, I want to see something really cool. That's your challenge for the week.
Totally agree. And I'm thinking even like there was a guy that I saw one time making short content. I think he was a graphics or like a special effects artist, basically. And there'd be a part of like a wall missing. And then he would make a 3D print that perfectly fit into that wall. And then he would show putting it into the wall. And so even that idea where like, hey, there's a broken piece of brick. What if I modeled something that actually perfectly seats inside of it to like disguise it? And then even get a little bit crazy printing it, painting it, whatever it happens to be. Super rad. Can't wait to see what you make. Jake, this has been the CADclass podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Jake.
And we'll see you possibly next Tuesday, but definitely next Wednesday.
See you guys. Have fun.
Right. Take care.
Adios.